My hand's stable, I feel able to turn the tables, I could do this. Just keep moving, keep your hands up, stupid. I feel lucid, a new viewing. I can see the end, I can see my future, I can view it. It's right there for the taking. Everything I've ever wanted, dreams are just waiting. I just gotta fight for it, willing to die for it, willing to like sort of.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000, it still sucks. This is Philip J. Price, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show, your one-stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
Just like every other podcast. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drunk Turkey Show. I'm Daniel. Alongside with me, as always, are my good buddies, Jaime and Blue. Jaime, let's start off with you. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I got a nap in, so I feel pretty refreshed, to be honest.
Dude, I did the same thing, man. In fact, I woke up a little while ago thinking it was the morning, and I overslept. I was in
done
a
that plenty
panic.
of times.
Big Blue, how are you doing, my man? How's the girlfriend doing?
She's doing good, man. She's recovering. She's at home already. She's out of the hospital. Her transplant's holding well, so we're just keeping her hopes up. And today is one of my only days off, so I am enjoying a beverage.
Nice. What are you gonna have?
This one's not in Texas. It's called the Lone Girls Holidays. It's one holiday ale made with dried fruit, spice, and reindeer dust. I don't know what reindeer dust is, but I want to drink it. So this comes from a brewery up in Wisconsin. My brother came to visit for the holidays, and this was one of my Christmas gifts.
Nice.
Good deal, man. Good deal. Let us know how you like it. Let us know how you like it for sure. But today we have a couple of guests, actually. We have a parent of Kay-Alana Turner, Robbie and Rosa Calhoun. They are, like I said, there are Kay-Alana's parents. Kay-Alana is a person that we had talked about earlier this year. She went missing, and she's still missing, and we need your help and everybody's help finding her. And to get some more details through that, welcome Robbie and Rosa. How are you guys doing this weekend?
Thank you very much.
Evening.
We're doing okay. We've come through the Christmas and the holiday. Of course, this is day 307 for us, so it's hard to describe. But at any rate, we've got other things in our lives, like 2 grandbabies and work and other joys that keep us going. By God's grace, we're able to still have moments of joy and laughter and smile, but it's always the shadow is always that Kay-Alana is missing, and so it's our job as her parents to do everything we can to bring her home.
Yeah, I can't imagine the horrors that you guys have gone through, not knowing where she's at. Our deepest I don't want to say condolences, but our thoughts and prayers go out to you guys, and we're hopeful that she will be found alive and well. But let's get into a little bit about Kay-Alana. Can you tell us a little bit about her? How old was she?
She was 27 when she went missing. Her birthday is in April, so she's 28 now. We had been told we had been married 8 years and 11 days when Kay-Alana was born. We were told we would never have children, and through God's grace, He gave us Kay-Alana, and it was a struggle even to carry the pregnancy and stuff. And when she was born, she had a heart condition, and we didn't know that. They didn't find that out until she was born, and so we have been fighting for Kay-Alana since the moment she was born. She had congestive heart failure. She has severe asthma. We just spent a lifetime just taking care of her and making sure that she was healthy and could do the things that she needed to do. Kay-Alana is super smart. She won $3.68 million in scholarships coming out of high school. She was the salutatorian for Lumberton High School. She was a Lamar University ambassador. She speaks fluent French, fluent Spanish. She majored in Spanish and business with a minor in hospitality. She was a Lamar University ambassador. She did a study abroad in Spain. She did a study abroad in France. She traveled to the Panama Canal as an ambassador for Lamar University and met with the CEO of the Panama Canal as an ambassador for Lamar University. She has spent a lifetime doing community service and helping people, and she really is the kindest, sweetest girl. And we are all in shock that this has happened to her, and that we just tell people, if this could happen to Kay-Alana, it could happen to anybody. It could happen to anybody. Your child is not safe if this could happen to her.
Yeah.
And you know, she went to New York City in 2019, and she was working at a hotel in Times Square. And then the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, her hotel actually kept her on. And she was riding the subway by herself. And she sent us pictures, and it was like apocalyptic. There was nothing. She sent us pictures of her standing in the middle of Times Square with there being nobody. And she did that for a year. And we were begging her to come home. And when she did finally come home, she was suffering from PTSD. She just shook all the time. We'd never seen anything like that. And, you know, we were used to her other medical issues, but we weren't used to seeing this girl that was so strong and used to fighting, and seeing her just shake and just shrink back from stuff. She wore a face mask in the house all the time. She was so terrified. But she would tell us about the things that she saw in New York City, about walking past refrigerated trucks full of dead bodies. You know, just it was a crazy situation up there. So
everything you saw, everything you saw on the news, whatever you think about that, you know, but whatever you saw on the news during that time, she was right there in the middle of it. Right down to the point that her hotel hosted the military medical personnel that they finally brought in. She actually was hosting those people and got to know some of them. So she was right in the middle of, you know, ground zero, the cliche, you know, she was right there.
Yeah. The New York at that time was, you know, ground zero. That was, you know, one of the biggest hit areas. I can't imagine some of the things that she had seen and had to go through down there in that spot. And plus, you know, the fear that was going through with so many people that were passing out of that specific, you know, general area, because there was just so many people in that area. For sure. When did she leave New York and come back to Texas?
She came back to Texas in May, end of April, beginning of May of 2021. So she worked the whole year in New York before coming through that pandemic. She worked that whole time through that pandemic. And she got back the end of April, beginning of May of 2021.
Gotcha. And so, yeah, you say you saw a much different person, somebody that was wearing masks inside. What did she have a history of any type of mental health prior to COVID?
No, she didn't have anything like that. But we both have, my sister was bipolar, and Robbie has an aunt that's bipolar, but we'd never had anything like that. She'd never had anything like that. And it was suggested to her by one of her friends, oh, you need to talk to a psychiatrist. And so when she told us that she, you know, was going to go and meet and talk to a psychiatrist, we kind of felt like that was probably a good idea, because she was so terrified of everything.
Initially a therapist.
Yeah, it was a therapist.
Yeah. And then gradually she ended up seeing an actual psychiatrist. And at some point along that road, things started to be prescribed to her. And then that feeds right into the events of March 10th of 23, because in January 23, she had begun to see a psychiatrist who had prescribed 2 medications for her. And then 2 weeks prior to the event of March 10th, he had increased the dosage of one of those medications from a 50 milligram to a 100 milligram. And we've learned since from quite a few people that the 2 medications she took most likely shouldn't be taken together in most cases. And certainly the dosage that the increase in that dosage would have affected her and as we've seen the results of the effects of that. And that's what brought us to that day.
And she also has a heart condition, and her condition specifically, she should not have been on those medications with her heart condition. And, it's just a tragedy of everything that happened, because she had actually told the doctor that she was not doing well on the medication when it was at 50 milligrams. And he told her to continue to take it and her body would get used to taking it. But then he doubled it. She started taking this medicine on January 17th. We have the pill bottles because her purse was in the car. She started taking the medicine on January 17th. He increased the medication on February 20th. And what they say is that it takes 2 weeks for the medication to get to a full dosage. So at the 14 days, February is a short month. So you're talking 8 days to get. So the 8 days, and then 4 more days would get you to the 4th of March, and then just 6 more days, and you're at the day that she went missing. But she was already having trouble 3 or 4 days before that. So exactly at the point that it would have been 2 weeks that she would have had that full medication in her system is when everything went off the rails. And she wasn't sleeping. She hadn't slept in days. She went to go stay with her best friend, and she told her, because when she got there, Brittany said, "Hey, what's wrong? You look terrible." And she said, "I haven't slept in 3 or 4 days." And Brittany said, "Well, you just need to sleep. You just need to sleep." And she'd actually went to Brittany's house to work on a project with Brittany to help Brittany. And I want to say this up front. Kay-Alana is not a drug user. She doesn't drink. She tells people she's sober. She just doesn't do anything like that. The only medication that she had was the medication that was prescribed to her by her doctor. And we have counted the pills. And there was 2 that she hadn't taken. So she was like, according to, if she started taking them on the 20th, she missed 2 doses of that medication. So it wasn't like she took a whole bunch of them and overdosed herself that way. She didn't.
What are the, if you don't mind us asking, what are the 2 medications that she was taking?
Ritalin and Zoloft.
Okay. I'm familiar with Zoloft. I've taken it myself quite a while ago, and I took myself off of it. It was not, it didn't, I didn't like the effects of it.
And that's the one that was doubled. That's the one that the dosage was doubled on.
On the Zoloft.
Yeah.
And I just kind of did a little Google search just to kind of see what happens. It says when you may be more than likely to experience side effects, including a rare but serious condition called serotonin syndrome, which may include symptoms such as confusion, hallucination, seizures, extreme exchange of blood pressure, increased heart rate, fever, excessive sweating, shivering and shaking, blurred vision, muscle. Some of the things that it does kind of sound like she was having that time when she went missing. Would those symptoms seem accurate to you guys?
Well, we know because the Homeowner Association president had taken a picture of her, and her lips are completely blue. She was in a cardiac event. She wasn't just having a mental crisis. She was having a cardiac event, and these police officers didn't notice that. We've dealt with her with this. She
with the cardiac.
With the cardiac stuff. She's had this her whole life, and she would just go to bed and sleep. We ended up homeschooling her from the time she was about in 5th grade until the time she went to high school, because it had just become so hard for her to go to school. She would get weak during the day. Her teacher, her 2nd grade teacher, actually had a bed in her room set up for Kay-Alana, so that when she became too tired to just go on, that her teacher would tell her, baby, go lay down. And it was an actual bed set up in the classroom for her. And she would just sleep. There would be days when she would have to miss school. She would be so weak. And our other daughter would be going to school, and we would go to pick her up. And Kay's little friends from her class would actually come out and rock my van, trying to get to the van to talk to Kay-Alana and to check on her. She just has so many precious, precious friends. But
But to speak to your point on the symptoms that you read, the confusion and all that, that's evident because her friend Brittany, where she was staying for the couple of days prior to the events, she was on Brittany's ring cam, trying to get in the house. She had been in the house and she went out for some reason, and she was trying to come back in, and it's a digital lock. And the code has been the same forever. Kay knows the code. It's like her house practically, because she stays there so much. And on the ring cam, you can see her struggling, trying to figure out how to get in the house. She can't figure out that code. So that would have been on Thursday, the 9th.
That would have been the 9th. And not only that, but Brittany said the garage door was open. All she would have had to do was walk into the garage. And they said that she had gone to the neighbor's house looking for Brittany. Is this Brittany's house? And the girl said, I knew that Kay-Alana knew that this wasn't your house. And it was only after Kay, that Kay was missing, that this girl called Brittany and said, hey, I need to let you know this happened. Out of character.
So, let's kind of go back a little bit. You said that the days leading up to the event that she had been staying at her friend Brittany's house. What city does Brittany live in?
Brittany lives in Silsbee, which is, we live in Lumberton. Brittany lives in Silsbee, and Kay-Alana actually lived in Beaumont with her boyfriend. She had actually rented a house in Beaumont back and moved in January. And the first night she slept there, it had bed bugs. And so she contacted the homeowner and said, hey, it's got bed bugs here. And he's like, well, that's your responsibility. That's not my responsibility. And so she spent 6 weeks fighting bed bugs. Well, she has a vintage clothing business. She loves vintage clothing. In fact, the picture that y'all have up of her right now is in front of some of her stuff. And she spent 6 weeks fighting bed bugs. And then she had loaded all of her merchandise into her car and took it to the laundromat to wash it and clean it. So her car was full of white garbage because she has a ton of vintage clothing. It's her business. And her car that day, it had the clothes in it, and it had like 3 or 4 big things of laundry detergent in the car because she had taken the clothes to the laundromat to wash them. And that also was a problem because that made the police think that she was homeless because she had all these bags of clothes in her car. And,
Gotcha.
And none of that, it was strictly, she had a business. She had a setback by moving into a house that had bed bugs. And the owner of the house did end up giving back because she moved out. He did end up giving her back her money, gave her back all of her money, but she still spent a lot of money fighting those bed bugs. And then I don't know how long it took her to wash all those clothes again and take care of them, but those were in her car.
So how many days was she at Brittany's house, or how many days had she been?
Just went to, so she went to Brittany's house on the 8th. Brittany and her were working on something. Brittany has like some students that she helps at school and stuff. And so they were working on some kind of project. So that was kind of why Kay had gone, she was going to go and help Brittany. Brittany and Kay they're like two peas in a pod. When they were growing up, if you saw one, you saw the other one. They're always together and love each other like sisters. There's actually a third one, Cortland, but Cortland lives away. So they were always together. And so if Kay was working on something, Brittany would help her. And if Brittany was working on something, Kay would help her. It was just the way they were.
And so she was there for a few days. I recall reading or hearing something about her thinking that she was in Austin. What happened with that?
So what happened on the morning? This is actually from Brittany's Ring camera. So on the morning of the 10th, I got a call from Brittany, and Brittany was panicked. And she said, I can't find Kay-Alana. She said, I talked to her last night. I got a text from her that said, no help. And she said, I started frantically trying to call her. And she said, I finally got a hold of her. And she said, she asked her where she was. And she said, I'm just driving around. And Brittany said, okay, but where are you? And Kay couldn't tell her. And so they lost contact. Well, so by that Friday morning, Brittany was panicked because she couldn't get a hold of Kay-Alana. So she called me, and I immediately took off work, and I'm going to go to Beaumont. Brittany had told me that she had contacted Kay-Alana's boyfriend, James, and said, hey, Kay-Alana says she's just driving around. Now, this was on the 9th. Can you go and look at all the places? So James actually got up right then and went and drove all around Beaumont, went to all the places where Kay-Alana plays music at, went to all the places where Kay-Alana house sits, went to everywhere looking for her and couldn't find her. And he had to be at work the next morning at 6. And he said, well, she must have went and spent the night with somebody else. So he went home. So he ends up telling Brittany he couldn't find her. So I'm headed to Beaumont, and I'm going to go drive around and look for her. Meantime, I had called Robbie and said, let him know what was going on. And he said, maybe she decided to go to Austin. This weekend is South by Southwest. And they have a really good friend that they went to high school with that lives in Austin. And last year, they all went and stayed with him when they went to South by Southwest. And so I called Brittany back. I didn't have his number. I called Brittany back. I said, hey, can you call him and see if Kay-Alana may have been going to his house? Maybe that's where she is. And so Brittany called me back and said, hey, he said he called her last night. She called him last night from Hockley, Texas, and told him she was on her way to his house, but she hasn't made it there. So by then I was already in Beaumont. I went to Robbie's work. He got off work and we headed to Hockley, Texas. So while we're heading to Hockley, Texas, Brittany says, I'm going to go file a missing persons report in Hardin County. I got on the phone while Robbie was driving and called the Austin Police Department to ask them to go do a well check at this friend's house in Austin. Because at this point, we're thinking she's just run out of gas and her phone is dead, because she told the friend that her phone was at 3% and that it was dying. So we start driving. I'm talking back and forth with this officer in Austin. And I'm going to tell you, the Austin police officer that helped us, she was amazing. She kept in contact with us the whole time. So when she got to the friend's house in Austin, we had just made it to Hockley. And before we got that far, I had called the friend, and he said that he had talked to the Harris County Sheriff's Department and they were looking for Kay-Alana, and none of that made sense. And so when this police officer called me from the friend's house and said, what he said is true. Harris County Sheriff's Department is looking for her. They had a dog and a helicopter chasing her. And I'm just like, what in the world is going on? And she said, I am so sorry, because she knew we were panicked. We were sending every picture, we were sending everything, her bank account, everything to this officer. So she knew we were panicked. Yeah. And So immediately, we just got to a McDonald's in Hockley. I immediately called the Harris County Sheriff's Department, and it took them a while for an officer to call me back. And so when that officer got on the phone with us, and he's telling us that our daughter's in a lot of trouble, that she did all this property damage and all this stuff, and I'm just trying to figure out what's going on, and I'm asking him, you know, is she alive? Do you know, and he's like, we haven't found her yet, like that. And so we're trying to ask him to come and show us where it's at, meet us or something. And he says, I'm getting off work. But your daughter's in a lot of trouble and she's going to jail for a long time. And I thought, did she run through these people's house? What did she do? You know, what did she do? And I couldn't get it, couldn't wrap my head around it. So he gave us the address. He couldn't be bothered to come and meet us. He gave us the address to get there. And so we found this subdivision, and we get there, and it's a super nice subdivision. And we're even having trouble finding which house it is because Google really doesn't pick it up. So when we get to the house, there's a man outside, and that man begins to tell us he's the homeowner, and Kay-Alana was at his house. And he said she was sleeping in their driveway, and that they couldn't wake her up. So his wife came out, and she began to talk to us. Well, the husband, the police had told us that they had impounded Kay-Alana's car. First of all, you know, we were like, we thought maybe she was still in her car. They're like, no, we impounded her car. So we're talking to the man, and he says, well, her car's down there in the woods. And we said, her car's in the woods. And he asked Robbie, he said, do you want to go see the car? And so Robbie's like, yeah. So him and the man take off down to go to the car. And I'm left with the homeowner, the lady of the house. And she begins to tell me that she woke up that morning and noticed that there was a car in her driveway, and she went out and she couldn't wake the girl up. And so she called the homeowners association. And so apparently their security team came. Well, whenever they came, they woke her up, and the lady said she tried, and we're assuming they must have parked behind her, because the lady said, I thought she was going to hit my car because she had to pull up. And she said, and then she turned the car, and I thought she was going to hit my pump house, and she didn't. And she drove across our yard to get down to the street. Well, when she drove down to the street, the lady said that she tried to leave the cul-de-sac, except the homeowners association president had parked his car across the cul-de-sac, the entrance and exit of that cul-de-sac. So there was no way for her to leave the cul-de-sac. And that's when she was sitting there, that man took pictures of Kay-Alana. So that is how we know what she looked like that morning. Her lips were blue. She looked scared out of her mind. We don't know what was going on, but we know she was in a cardiac event, because when we see her lips blue, we know that that's what that means. But they didn't know that. But they were flashing camera lights at her, you know, the phone light for taking the pictures. They were screaming at her.
It's still dark.
And it was still dark. And so she turned her car and went to go back to try to go out another way, but there was no other way. So she just ended up parked in that lady's driveway again. And the lady said, so she was sitting there, and the police officer came up on the side of her car and tried to open the door. And she said Kay-Alana was frantically locking the door over and over again. Over and over again, she kept locking the door. And then she moved the car. She moved her car and was up against a fence. And the police officer came up and busted Kay-Alana's window out. Now, at that point, we did not know that they had busted her window out with a 2x4. We just thought they used that little tool that they had, but they didn't. In this map, you can see where she tried to leave and she couldn't, and she had to come back to that house. So you can actually see where she tried to leave. So you can see she went out and she had to come back. And then you can see where she drove across the pastures to get away. But she ended up driving through a fence through that fence after they busted her window out into the next door neighbor's yard around. He had an outbuilding, and he said, I don't know how she didn't hit our outbuilding, but she didn't. And then she went out through their fence and across that pasture where she bogged her car down, and you can see where it ends. And the red is where they think, that's their thought, that where she was on foot. So the white is where her car was.
Got you. And just to kind of go ahead, Blue.
Did they ever take like a bloodhound to try to track her down, see where she went?
They did. So Robbie comes back. By this time, this lady is telling me this, and she tells me that my daughter was in their neighborhood, that they have an Airbnb in that neighborhood, and they've been trying to get rid of it. But the people that are staying at that Airbnb right at that moment were drug dealers, and they were, my daughter was there to buy drugs. And I said, no, ma'am, she was not. And she said, the police told me that your daughter is a homeless drug addict. And I said, no, ma'am, that is not true. And she said, you don't know your daughter. And I said, yes, ma'am, I do. I know my daughter. And, but that's what the police told her, that our daughter was a homeless drug addict. Well, come to find out, they didn't even know who our daughter was until they got down to her car. They hadn't even run her license plate as it sat in the driveway. No, they didn't know who she was until they got down to the car in the woods. And on top of that, the only way they were able to identify exactly who she was by the picture that the Homeowners Association president took and matched it up to her driver's license. They had no idea who she was. No idea. And they did that. So meantime, Robbie comes back from the car, him and the man, and I can see him coming across the yard, and he's carrying Kay-Alana's purse, and he's carrying Kay-Alana's overnight bag. And in the overnight bag are Kay-Alana's shoes, and he said, I found her shoes beside the car. They were full of glass, and I dumped the glass out of them. So he can kind of tell you.
Yeah. And just the people in the Airbnb weren't drug dealers either, by the way. So all that was a fabrication or some imaginary thing in this lady's mind because she was upset that in her nice neighborhood, somebody had the gall to open an Airbnb. So anyway.
Yeah. And the other thing about the Airbnb people, they had just flown in the night before, and one of their family members, they had flown in for a family reunion, and one of their family members had a stroke on the airplane. So instead of coming straight to the Airbnb, they went to the hospital. So they didn't come in till the middle of the night. And when they got home, Kay-Alana was parked in the driveway of the Airbnb. And so they knocked on the window, and she moved her car from that Airbnb driveway to the very next driveway. And it was those people's driveway. So
anyway, that on the map you're looking at from where that white line starts at the house to where the red line is about a half a mile trip. So that's the distance there. And we walked that morning. I walked down to where the white line turns into a red line. That's where the car was bogged down. You see it in the picture there. And then that is Spring Creek. Now here's one of our aggravations, one of many, with the processes and in our mind, the failure of law enforcement in this deal was, you see Spring Creek, above Spring Creek is Montgomery County.
Oh, okay.
Below that, where all this is happening, is Harris County. It was 3 hours before anybody in Montgomery County knew anything about this. So she crosses that creek and she's in Montgomery County, to the best of our knowledge, goes to a road, which is below, you can't see it, but that road that's on the left, it makes a hard 90. And so she would have gone straight to that road if she would have went straight that way. There's a house right there. You can't see it, but it's just past that clearing. So everybody believes that's what she did. She crossed the creek, went to that road. Well, that's Montgomery County. And again, it was 3 hours before anybody in Montgomery County was even aware that this situation was going on. Now, keep in mind that about 45 minutes after the event started, by the time they let her drive away or she drove away, they were very lackadaisical in their pursuit. One of the homeowners actually had to urge them, hey guys, you're police officers. You can cross this property. They were concerned about trespassing or something. But anyway, it took them quite a few minutes to walk down to where she had driven to. By that time, she was gone. So about 45 minutes after that, a helicopter shows up. The dog shows up. Well, I'm 63 years old now and a little overweight, and I know that in 45 minutes I could probably walk about 3 or 4 miles.
Yeah.
So in that 45-minute window, there's no telling how far she could have gone. And on top of that, here's Harris County with a helicopter and dogs searching for what they've now labeled as a fugitive felon, and they don't even notify Montgomery County.
Was Spring Creek, did it have water at the time?
It was low at the time. There hadn't been on this area that was pretty much that was kind of the beginning of our drought that lasted through most of the summer, so the water was very low. There was a log that had fallen across the creek, a pretty good sized log that was easily traversed, and that's where I found her shoes, were on the this side of the creek, which would be the south side of the creek. That's where she had taken the shoes off in the sand there. And then her footprints were on the opposite side of the creek in the sand. So she crossed on that log. If she were to somehow have fallen into the water, it wasn't very deep right there. We really don't believe that would have been a possibility that she would have ended up in the creek.
She was wearing a long hot pink dress and she was barefooted.
That dress. And she literally trips walking across the kitchen floor. She's like so clumsy. And it's like, how did they let her get away? And when they got down to her car, had they even just went in those woods, they would have caught her. They would have found her. But instead of going in the woods, they waited for the helicopter and the dog, because it was more fun to get a helicopter and a dog to come than it was to search for our daughter, because they thought, it's a girl. We'll find her. But I can tell you this, we went and walked those woods. They gave us an address over on Decker Prairie, Rose Hill Road. And we went, and that lady was so gracious, and she led us onto her property, and we crawled through that bramble and we screamed Kay-Alana's name. And we were out there for a few hours. And then we had reached out to Texas EquiSearch. And so they told us that we needed to fill out a missing persons report. So we had to go back over to the house where it all started at. But we spent a couple of hours in those woods screaming Kay-Alana's name. And the lady let us go through all her outbuildings and her barns and stuff. And of course, we didn't find anything. But you would have thought we would have found a shred of her dress, a piece of that dress, something. We found nothing of her in those woods. And we were searching. And so we went back over to the house where Kay-Alana's had fallen asleep in the driveway. And when we get there, it was like all the people came out to talk to us. And so that's how we found out all the information that we found out about what went on that morning, and how that actually a constable had woke Kay-Alana up and she tried to leave, and then she'd come back. And so we, because we're just thinking she left straight from there. But then, after talking to all the people, we realized she tried to leave. They trapped her like an animal and they wouldn't let her leave. And so I'm going around and I'm introducing myself to people. And I go up to a man and I put my hand out and I say, "Hi, I'm Rosa Calhoun." And he said, I know, I Googled your lovely daughter. I think there's been a horrible mistake. So within hours of this happening, probably within minutes of this happening, he had already Googled Kay-Alana's name and found out who she was and knew that there had been a horrible mistake. The police had already there were 2 homeowners that their fences got messed up. The police had already given those homeowners Kay-Alana's insurance information, and they had both already filed claims against Kay-Alana's insurance, and they have been paid. Kay-Alana's insurance has paid them for the damages to their fence. What homeless drug addict has insurance on their vehicle? And they were paid, instantly. They didn't have to wait a long time to get paid for what happened that morning. Right. So the police knew that she had insurance on her car. They
by then they knew who she was. They knew that she'd never had a ticket. She'd never had anything. We've been dealing with the Texas Ranger, and he said, I have no idea why they treated her this way, because her record is spotless. She has nothing on her record. And yet they told that homeowner that she was a homeless drug addict with warrants. They told that homeowner that. And I think that lady still believes that. Well, now she does have warrants because they put them on her, and they couldn't wait to slap those warrants on her.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. I don't think, I think they should be dropped. I think,
Well, the little
she was
ladies
in
in
a
our
daze.
church, the little ladies in our church called Harris County Sheriff's Department over and over and over again. And the missing person detective told Robbie, he said, they're killing us. They're killing us. They're calling saying, drop the charges. He's like, they're not going to drop these charges. But the officer that came out that did the missing persons report, we're telling him about her heart condition. We're telling him about her asthma. We're telling him that she needs help. She needs her asthma medication. I mean, it's crazy to think that she doesn't have her asthma medication, and they don't care. And I'm telling him all of this, and he's just telling us that when we find her, we're going to put her in jail. And I'm like, are you going to take her to the hospital? We'll evaluate her at the jail. They have no concerns for her. They have no concerns that she was in the middle of a mental crisis. And we are telling them that. And we've got the medicine. We're showing it to them because we have her purse and we found all the medication. We're showing him, and they have no concern whatsoever. But we had talked with Texas EquiSearch, and the officer that took the missing persons report, he actually walked down with us to the car. And by then, Brittany and Viet, Brittany is Kay-Alana's best friend, and her husband Viet had got to us, and they walked down with us to the car too that night. And I actually tracked it with my walking app so that we knew how exactly how far it was to get to the car. And the police officer kept saying, how did they not catch her? How did they not catch her? And it's because they had no concern for her that morning. They had no concern. There was no urgency in them whatsoever. And so the Texas EquiSearch, the guy told us, the police officer said that when the warrants go in effect, Texas EquiSearch will not be able to help us. And so we were talking with Texas EquiSearch, and the man said, okay, look, I'm going to meet y'all out there at 7 a.m. So we get a hotel room. We're not, we came thinking we were going to buy gas and get her back home, and get her phone charged. We're not expecting that we're coming to stay to hunt for Kay that's missing. And so we've already started calling hospitals and checking all of those places and stuff. And so we go back to the hotel. We put on the news because we're watching the news, because surely if they had a helicopter and a dog and they're saying that she did all this terrible stuff, this is going to make the news. This is big time. Not a peep, nothing. And so Mark, the next morning, Texas EquiSearch meets us. We meet them where they said that Kay-Alana came out, and I'm going to let Robbie kind of.
Yeah. And I don't know, I'm sure y'all are all familiar with Texas EquiSearch. It's one of the finest missing person search team volunteer organizations in the world, not just in Texas or the United States. These guys know what they're doing.
And they worked on the Vanessa Guillen case, and they found her when the police couldn't find her.
Yeah. And but at any rate, so we were put in contact with them on that Friday. By that Friday evening, we were already talking to them, and they were going to come look for her. But it turns out that Texas EquiSearch and most volunteer organizations can't search for a person with warrants. If a person has a warrant, because of their volunteer status and the safety of their volunteers, they can't search for people that have warrants outstanding. So they had a window Saturday morning of about 6 hours before the warrants would be in effect. And so they brought a team of as many people as they could get together, which was, for them, a fairly small team, but still an effective team. And if that map was there again, you could see probably that area, that wooded area. They searched that Saturday morning for about 6 hours. They walk back and forth. Their term is mowing the lawn. They just kind of go back and forth the best they can. That picture doesn't do justice to what we call the big thicket here in Texas. If there's not a lane cut through it, you don't get through it. It's very thick, brambles, briars. But they searched all along Spring Creek as best they could. But once about noon hit, about noontime, those warrants went into effect, and they had to back off, and they stayed backed off. There was one time they thought they were going to be able to get back in, and they weren't able to. And then a couple of months went by, and I don't know what happened, who talked to who, but at some point, Texas EquiSearch, after following our page, said, nope, we're back in. And so they are now back on the case, and they have conducted a couple of more searches, a little more in depth in that area and in some other areas. And we're just very thankful that they're back helping us.
But the charges are still there, right?
The charges are still there. When all this happened, we were told that you could not have warrants and a missing persons running at the same time. And so there was only the warrants. So, I mean, the TV stations wouldn't talk to us. Nobody would talk to us because she had these warrants. And so we set up the updates for Kay-Alana Turner page. And thank God we're surrounded by really smart young people. My niece, Brienne, Kay-Alana's best friend, Brittany, her husband, and then Kay-Alana's boyfriend, James, worked to get that page set up where that we could get tips and stuff. And when it started, the first day when Texas EquiSearch was out there searching, we had my niece put together flyers, and on the flyers we put the Harris County Sheriff's Department phone number. That's the number we put. We're like, we want to find her. We want to get this straight with you guys, because we just know that this is a misunderstanding. And so we are going to hospitals. We're going everywhere, running with these flyers and handing them out to everybody with the Harris County Sheriff's Department phone number on them. Well, I ended up at a hospital. We were riding with different people, just to try to both be in two places at one time, and ended up at a hospital, and there was a Harris County Sheriff's deputy there. And so I go up to him, and I've got the flyer, and I try to hand it to him, and I'm telling him that my daughter is missing. And he looks at me with just evil in his eyes, and he says, your daughter is not missing. She is a fugitive. And he literally put his hands behind his back and refused to take the flyer. And there was another man standing there, and he said, I'll take the flyer. And I gave that man the flyer. And at that moment, we knew that Harris County Sheriff's Department was not going to help us. They were not going to help us find Kay-Alana. They had no interest in helping us. And that didn't happen just once. That happened twice. I had a sheriff's deputy tell me that she was a fugitive. She had warrants, and she was not missing. She was a fugitive.
So now that it's a fugitive case, I'm sorry to say it, but that's what they're calling it. The Texas Rangers should be involved now, right? Are they helping you?
We do have a Texas Ranger that is helping us, and he's been wonderful too. And he just says, I have no idea why they acted the way they did that morning. He said, it doesn't make any sense. There is nothing on her record that would have made them do that, except when you see the picture that y'all have up right now with the police officer holding the gun on Kay-Alana's car. Mm-hmm. That is when they got her driver's license. That's when they found out who she was. She was already gone away from that driveway. They didn't run anything while it was sitting in the driveway. Yeah. They had no idea who she was. They had no idea.
Oh yeah, there's crazy coincidences that happen like that. Just a couple of weeks ago here in San Antonio, not the same incident, but there was a gentleman that fell asleep in his truck, and he unfortunately fell asleep there because he was tired. But he had his, you can open carry, so he had his open carry with him. But because he had it with him, and somebody called it in that they couldn't wake him up, they brought the SWAT team. They brought I don't know who else. They started throwing frag grenades under his car to wake him up. And he was just he was just super tired. It was a misunderstanding. So they unfortunately that's the way they treat these things. They think it's worst scenario first.
Well,
That's pretty crazy.
They claimed that they thought Kaylana had a gun. Kaylana's never shot a gun. She's never even, but she had a charcuterie board in her car that she used to display jewelry on. How they could think that that was a gun, I have no idea. Or if that was just something they latched onto. Oh, we'll say that we thought she had a gun.
Probably that. Jaime, you had a question?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, when they did the search and the search with the canines, right, with the dogs, was there any blood found? I'm guessing, running through a thicket of brush in barefooted in a dress like that, you would think she would at least get cut in the bottom of her feet. Was any of that found?
No, there's, as far as we know, there wasn't. As far as like, I found her shoes that had the glass in the shoes. There was no blood in the shoes. The shoes were clean of blood. So apparently, that whatever the kind of glass that a window is made of in a car, that safety glass, the way it shatters, maybe it doesn't cut as easily as other kinds of glass. I don't know, but no, as far as we know, they didn't pick up any kind of scents. There were two. They searched with the dog that day for a couple of hours, over how long they were out there, and then we had another search that was organized outside of EquiSearch. There was another organization that organized the search, and we're very grateful for that group that came in, and they were going to search, and suddenly they got a call from Harris County the night before the search and told them to put their search on hold because they wanted to come in first. And so they brought dogs again. Now, by that time, if a dog would have found something, it wouldn't have been good. So they brought cadaver dogs, what they brought. And so I guess that would have been 3 weeks after.
Yeah, we had to fight. They wouldn't let us have a missing persons, and we had to fight to get her missing persons reinstated. And that in itself was a nightmare because we'd set up that updates for Kaylana page, and we were posting everything that was going on, where we were going, if somebody called in a sighting to us, what we were doing, we were posting everything. Well, a man got on there because Brittany is super smart. So everything that was coming out with Kaylana's name on it, Brittany was capturing it. And Brittany was the one that captured the original police report that said that they broke her window out with a 2x4. When I saw that, I was devastated. But Brittany was capturing every single thing. So Brittany was putting it out there, and they had an $80,000 bond on her. So Brittany was putting that out there, and this man was on there, and he was like, y'all are crazy. Y'all are lying. There's no way all of this is going on. And finally, Brittany said, let's talk. And so they went off and went to Messenger, and we're talking back and forth. Well, come to find out, he had just retired from the Harris County Sheriff's Department in the warrants division. And he said, you can have a missing persons and a warrants. And Brittany's like, they have told us, no, we can't. And he walked her step by step through what needed to happen for us to get a missing persons reinstated. So at that point, the next day we were going to file a complaint against the police officers for their actions of that morning. And especially after we found out about the 2x4. And so I'm sorry. So we go to file the complaint, the complaint. And so me and Brittany and Robbie are at the place to file the complaint. And the officer comes out and he says, I only need one of y'all. And so we tell Robbie to go do that. And Brittany says, hey, let's me and you go see if we can get the missing persons reinstated. So we go to the office, the address that the man gave us to go to. We get there, and the lady's like, I don't know why y'all are here. This is not where you're. And every time they'd say no, Brittany would just say, yeah, they told us to come here. Well, finally, she ended up sending us to this other building, and we get there, and the lady behind the officer behind the counter goes, I don't know why you're here. This is the jail. And so it was the Harris County jail. And Brittany said, they sent us here, and we just kept standing there and we kept talking to her, and Brittany was just arguing her down. And finally a man comes out from the back, an officer comes out from the back, and he like comes over, he starts talking, he's like, I don't know why y'all were sent here. This is not where you're supposed to be. This is the jail. He goes, but you know what? I used to work in the warrants division. Let me see what I can do. And that man got on the phone and he started calling people. We spent 2.5 hours with that man, and he is a good man. And he worked so hard. And he would come out and he would ask us something, and he would go back, and then he'd say, well, that one was in court, and this one was here. And then finally he comes back and he's holding a piece of paper out to us. And he said, you have your missing persons. It was 15 days from the day that she went missing. They finally reinstated her missing persons case. And so we called Robbie. Robbie had just finished giving the complaint. We call Robbie. We meet at a Whataburger. And we say, you know, we're calling Joel. So he calls Joel to tell Joel, who is case missing person detective. And he said, never heard of this happening, but give me a few minutes. Let me find out. Well, in the meantime, we had got a tip that there was somebody that could possibly be Kay-Alana in Conroe, which was about an hour away from where we were. So we jumped in the van and headed to Conroe. And we had just pulled into Conroe when Joel called back and said, it's true. Send me your picture. And so we had our missing persons. 15 days. 15 days.
Jeez.
The most crucial time is the first 48 hours, 15 days. And then we finally got a TV station to come out and talk to us.
Jeez. Well, you know, our deepest apologies for everything that you guys have had to go through. Nobody should have to go through that. Do you know if there's any body cam footage or any of those type of things, the interaction between Kay-Alana and the 2x4 or anything like that?
Yeah, there is body cam footage. It's been asked for, or paperwork's been filled out by multiple people and agencies, and they refuse to share it with anybody at this point. It still hasn't been seen by anybody but the Harris County Sheriff's Department.
They say it's an ongoing investigation.
Yeah, that's the cloak, is ongoing. If you've ever watched one of these horrible Senate committee hearings where all they do is say it's ongoing investigation, so they don't have to answer any questions, that's the answer we get. It's an ongoing investigation.
Maybe there's an internal affairs investigation. That's what you need to investigate or talk to. Is internal affairs will find if it's right or wrong.
Well, just to give you an example of what kind of goes on, we were blessed to have Fox 7 out of Austin did a story on Kay-Alana. They called us. We did it back before Thanksgiving, I guess, and she told us it was going to run after Christmas. And so it just came out last Friday, I think, is when we found out it came out. Well, by the time we realized it and were able to view the story, everybody was gone for the weekend. And so we had to make it through the whole weekend with their statement was that Kay-Alana had been spotted in a neighboring, on and off again in a neighboring county, which was not true at all. But that was the official statement coming out of Harris County, that she had been spotted, which was a total fabrication, a total lie. And so Monday morning, I get on the phone. I've called her missing person detective. I've called the office. I called every single number that I had for Harris County Sheriff's Department. And I started telling people and talking to people. And I told Joel, I said, has she been seen? Because we hadn't talked to Joel. We had talked to him the week before. And he'd said there had been nothing, again, cold case, nothing. And I said, has she been seen? Because you guys are saying that she's been seen. Has she been seen? And he's like, no, she hadn't been seen. And I said, y'all got to fix this. Y'all got to fix this. And so their fix was they sent back the same thing to him and said, but those sightings are unverified. She's been seen on and off again in another county, but not verified. Not, how did they say it? Hold on, I'll read it to you.
Well, anyway, it took three rewrites basically for their whoever does that for Harris County to finally put out something that was closer to the truth. Anyway.
So it says Miss Turner has been cited in a neighboring county off and on, but with no credible sightings. So
Gotcha.
first it said she'd been cited on and off, and then the only thing they changed was they added no credible sightings. So yesterday, once Angela Shin did the report, and once she said it had been fixed and I realized what it said, I got on the phone, started calling again, spent all day yesterday trying to get this fixed again. And so they did come out with a new statement. It's still not good, but it's better than saying she's been seen. She has never been seen since that morning. There has not been one credible sighting of her since that morning when she drove away after that police officer busted her window out with a 2x4. But let me tell you, they have her on multiple Ring cameras before, like the night before she had pulled into a driveway. She'd followed a car in. She got lost in a neighborhood. She pulled into a driveway and she asked a teenage boy if she could sleep in their driveway. And he said, I have to ask my parents. And he went in and they said when they came out to talk to her, she was pulling away. And then she was in another driveway and she was out of the car and she was singing and she was saying, I love you. And the lady, we've made friends with Kelsey at that house, and she has been so kind. And she said she called the police. She called the Harris County Sheriff's Department. We actually have the officer's name, and they said they told her to send them the video. And she told them, she said, this lady is not drunk. This lady is not on drugs. There is something seriously wrong with her. She is having some kind of serious mental crisis. Y'all need to come. And they didn't come. And then 3 hours later, they bust her window out with a 2x4.
And the officer that busted out the door, was that the constable or the window?
No, it was Harris County Sheriff's deputy. It may be. I don't think it's the guy that's in that picture, but there were two of them. I think it was the other one, maybe.
Oh, tell them about the phone to get the phone back.
Yeah, the only thing they took, as far as we know, they didn't even do any processing of the vehicle or anything, other than maybe to get her license. But they did take her phone. She had dropped it at some point when she left the car, and so they found that and they took it with them. So months went by, and I finally started trying to figure out the process to get the phone back, and found out that to get the phone back, I had to get the officer that turned it into the evidence room to fill out some paperwork. And anyway, in the end, I ended up having to talk to that officer personally or on the phone and tell him, I actually had to explain to him the process of how I could get the phone back, but that he had to fill out the paperwork. And in the conversation, he was very humble. He seemed to me to know that they were in the wrong. I'll put it that way. That there were mistakes made, and we shouldn't be where we're at, based on the events of that morning and their actions that they took that morning. But in the end, he did fill out the paperwork. He had to get approval from his superior. He said, I have to get my approval from my superior because this is an active investigation. And I said, well, you and I both know, and you can let him know, that the only investigating going on is being done by our family. So do what you can. Anyway, in the end, I got the phone back. Of course, there's, we're glad to have it, but there's no help there as far as, telling us anything that would help us find Kay, because it died. It ran out of juice, the night before, and she hadn't used it. And
she couldn't. That's the thing, is she had no way of, she got lost in that neighborhood. The only thing she could do is go to sleep because she couldn't Google her way out. She couldn't figure out how to get out of it in her mental state. And she went to sleep. And all of this happened because she fell asleep in a stranger's driveway.
And on the Ring video that she was mentioning earlier, that were prior to earlier in the morning, on those Ring videos, she's actually asking and talking like she thinks she's in Austin. because she's asking for her friend. She's knocking on the door. She's saying his name. And so that's what told us that she thinks she's in Austin and she's lost.
How far is Austin from this place? Just those that aren't familiar with Texas.
Well,
About like a couple
from
hours.
from where she was at in Hockley or Tomball, more precisely, she would have been a couple hours from Austin, probably.
So pretty good distance.
Yeah, still a good ways to go. She had lost track of she'd lost all track of time and distance and that kind of stuff by that point.
Yeah, she's not from there. We had never even heard of Hockley before that morning. We had to put it in Google to find out how to get there. I mean, she knows nobody there. And that was the thing when they were saying that she's just hiding. I'm like, she knows nobody. She doesn't have her phone. You guys have her phone. She knows no numbers. She had worked. She does the Renaissance festivals and stuff. And she had worked up in Michigan. And her boyfriend had come up there to be with her. And he accidentally took her phone. And she had to call me and say, hey, can you call James and see if he has my phone? And so I called him. He's like, I don't think I do, but let me pull over. So he pulled over and he opens the trunk up. And he said, he told me to call her phone in a minute. I called her phone and he picks it up. He goes, yep, I've got it. He had to turn around and drive her phone back. But she didn't even know her boyfriend's phone number because kids just put phone numbers in their phone and they don't know a number. They never learn a number. It's just under their name.
I don't. It's been a long. I can remember all the numbers from when I was in high school, but I couldn't tell you anybody's number now because once you enter it, you just got to type in a name now versus a number. So I understand that. So you're saying that there's been no credible sightings of Kaylana.
We've every tip that's come out. I just wanted to mention that on the chat over here, I see that our niece Brianne is on there, and that is our niece. And if she answers the question on that chat, you can know that's the right answer. She knows everything.
Okay.
She's been with us since that. I mean, she was with us that day.
Yeah. Anyway, every tip we've gotten, we've either passed on to Harris County Sheriff's Department, to Joel, the detective that's on her case, and also Texas EquiSearch. As far as we know, every tip that we've gotten, that person has been found and identified and has not been Kay. So we can say pretty certainly that there has not been a credible sighting of Kay-Alana since March the 10th.
Yeah, jeez. And so she was wearing that pink dress. Let me pull it back up. This is what she was seen wearing, but she wasn't wearing the blue jacket. Is that correct?
Her jacket was found in the car, and
her
the purses that was in the car. Everything was in the car, and her car has been auctioned off. Her car's gone with her stuff in it.
Is she still considered in the top 20 of the most wanted there in Harris County?
She is. She's on that list. And if you pull it up, you will see a picture it's a very old picture of her. It's like it looks like when she was 14. And if that girl showed up at your house to babysit your kids, you would be so excited to have her come babysit your kids. And yes, they have her. But they didn't have her there either, because we kind of made that happen because we said, you guys are saying she's this terrible person and y'all don't even have her on your top. You're saying y'all are doing everything you can to find her. Y'all got her listed as a fugitive, and y'all are saying y'all are doing everything you can, and y'all don't have her on that list. That's not doing everything you can,
Yeah.
And so they've changed the police report like 3 times. It went from they busted her window out with a 2x4 to they busted it out with a stick, and then it became a tool of convenience. And we only found out about the tool of convenience while Robbie was doing his complaint. So,
Number
we
7.
do want to say that we're from Louisiana originally. We've got family members that are in law enforcement. We actually met a new cousin in Giddings through this process, who was a law enforcement officer in Giddings, who has been very helpful to us. And other officers that we met along this journey, Tomball Police Department, Montgomery Sheriff's Department.
Gosh, they're wonderful.
Wonderful people. So, we don't want to, we certainly don't want to frame this as law enforcement is bad. That's not the case. But we just have not gotten the kind of treatment that you would hope for in a situation like ours from Harris County Sheriff's Department.
And
No, yeah, I understand 100%. I'm former law enforcement myself, and in this situation here, it definitely does sound like maybe perhaps somebody's being protected there in the department. Maybe they did do something wrong, and they don't want to admit that there was a mistake made. I mean, that's kind of what it looks like from the outside looking in. It's there are bad. I don't want to say they're bad departments because I don't know how bad Harris County is as a whole. But there are bad moments where certain situations occur and police don't act in the manner that they should, and this is definitely one of them.
well, we've met officers from Harris County that are awesome. The officer that helped us get that missing, he spent 2.5 hours doing that. He didn't have to do that. He did that for us. Kaylana actually house sits for retired state troopers. She's grown up her whole life. Her sister, we had a really good friend that was a state trooper her whole life, and her sister was in a drowning accident where she almost drowned. And our friend, who is a state trooper, pulled her from the water and did CPR and saved her life. Kaylana had no reason at all to be fearful of police officers. She had no reason to fear the police, but she did have reason to fear men that were screaming at her, and men that were trying to get in her car, and men that would bust her window out with the 2x4s. She had reason to fear for her life that morning.
Yeah.
She has two great uncles that are police officers that she loves, And while she's been missing, one of them has passed away,
Yeah, that's very hard.
That's very sad.
And her Aunt Sandy has got banned from Ed Gonzalez's page because she has called him out so much. And her husband is the one that was the police officer. Robbie's uncle CJ.
Was it the county representative Ed Gonzalez or
Sheriff Ed Gonzalez?
Sheriff. I seen
He's
the name
the sheriff
before.
of Harris County.
Yeah, he's a high sheriff.
He refuses to meet with us. We have called. We have done multiple things trying to meet with him. We have jumped through every hoop they ask us to jump through, and he refuses to meet with us. And the lady, her name is Crystal, that is his press secretary, the person that helps him schedule, his scheduling secretary, I guess. She has said that it has to go up the chain of command, and it has to go. And I just told her, I said, your chain is broken. There's got to be a broken link because we need to talk to this man.
Yeah.
How about when he does his press conferences? I've seen that they open up to the public. Like certain times he might be able to show up to one of those.
Well, we live about 2.5 hours from where all of this has taken place. In fact, we spent 2 months in Tomball. I couldn't have told you anything about Tomball before March the 10th. We spent 2 months living in Tomball, tracking down everything, crawling through the woods, climbing through the brambles, been all up and down Spring Creek. We've met some of the most wonderful people in the world in Tomball, Texas. I'm going to tell you, those people have supported us. They have been the most loving, the most godly people, and they have helped us, and they have made this better because of their love for us. Some of the people in that neighborhood, they had no idea who Kaylana was, and they've been out in those woods themselves calling her name. There's a little lady that lives out there, and her name is Margaret, and she has done everything she can to help us find Kaylana. When she travels, she's got Kaylana's face on her suitcases because she said TSA may see it and ask about it. She's got Kaylana bumper stickers on her car, and she never met Kay, but she loves Kay. Kelsey, that her house was who Kay was at her house. She says she loves Kay. She can't wait to meet Kay. She can't wait to hug Kay. These people that should feel disdain and hatred towards Kaylana just treat you know, they just say they've come to know her, they love her.
Mhm.
You know, that's not, she's not a homeless drug addict. She's
Uh,
not the person that they portrayed her to be, and they refuse to drop these charges. The Kim Ogg says that mental illness is not a crime. She's the district attorney for Harris County. They won't even talk to me. Every time I've called them, they tell me that they are the prosecution and that they will prosecute Kay-Alana to the fullest. They will prosecute her to the fullest. They will not talk to us. They will not listen to us. We've called every single official, elected official in the state. We've sent emails. We've done everything. The attorney general, who is over law enforcement, we've been told by him that his job is not to help the public. His job is to only come alongside law enforcement if they ask for help. So who do we turn to? Who do we turn to? We have to turn to you guys. We have to turn to just normal everyday people, because we can't get help from the people that we elected to help us.
Yeah.
I guess they don't have the words public servant in their vocabulary.
Yeah.
That's
Is there any other identifying markers on her? I see the cross tattoo right there on her right shoulder.
That is actually a bow over the number 13.
Oh, a bow.
It was a Friday the 13th, and the little tattoo parlor had a sale on Friday the 13th tattoos. And so she got one, and I was just like, she was like, well, it was only $20. I'm like, it's going to cost more than that, so get rid of it. So she's got that tattoo. She's got a song lyric on her back, a song lyric, and it's the only two.
I think so.
Yeah, that's the only two that she has. She has perfect, you can see she has perfect eyebrows. She was born with perfect eyebrows. She doesn't have to do anything. She has the bluest eyes. We always say she has the bluest eyes in Texas. She has a perfect smile. When she was in college, she was a Lamar University ambassador, and she got to speak at their president's circle. And Kay-Alana's teeth were not perfect. She had, they were very crooked. And she spoke about, she's a McNair scholar, and she spoke about her McNair project where she went to Guatemala to do ecotourism. And after she was done speaking, one of the college donors went up to her professor and said, I would like to fix her teeth because this girl is going places. And so this donor, we don't know who it was, and she came home. She was so thrilled to finally be getting her teeth fixed. We didn't have that kind of money. I literally quit my job to take care of her when she was a baby. I stayed home, I babysit, you know. So we didn't have money to pay for braces for her. Her teeth they're just perfect because of the grace of God, you know. She went to school on a full ride scholarship, and all her study abroads, those were completely 100% paid for with scholarships. She's unbelievably smart. She can spell any word. It's unbelievable, her vocabulary, because when she was 3 years old, she wanted to be in the National Spelling Bee. And so from the time she was 3 until the time she aged out, which is 8th grade, I called thousands and thousands and thousands of spelling words. And so that she, you know, would learn. And she ended up 14th. She made it all the way to the Houston Chronicle Spelling Bee. And then it became the PBS Channel 8 Spelling Bee for her last year. But she made it to that 3 times. And that's one step away from the National Spelling Bee. And she placed 14th her last year. So she was 14 spots away from actually making it to the National Spelling Bee. She's so smart. She read every single book in the children's section in the library at Lumberton. I mean, she loves to read. She spent so much time in bed because of her heart condition and everything. So, you know, this is the hardened criminal that they attacked that morning.
And she does have she has a legal representation, a lawyer in Houston that very well known, well respected actually, and he is pro bono. Has said he wants to or will represent her. We just have to find her. When she's found, we'll walk in and we'll walk back out. There's none of this is going to stick. There's nothing here.
Yeah.
He understands that there's nothing here that is going to stick. There's nothing to it.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of folks are asking in the live chat, you know, what can we do to, you know, what can everybody do to help? Is there any type of, you know, foundation or fund
tell her story. We need people to share. We have to get national media coverage because we will not be able to tell her story. They're not Houston, you know, we can't even get it into the Houston market at all. If it wasn't for Gabby Hart having a show about the missing, we would have nothing in the Houston area about Kay-Alana. We can't get the newspapers to talk to us. We can't even get it on the news here locally. Somebody did a story because we got on the Vanish podcast, but we can't even get it on our local news where she was the spokesman for the Make Music Beaumont. She's been involved. She's talked to these TV stations. These people at the TV stations know her, and yet they won't carry this story.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. It's heartbreaking. And that's sad. Sorry.
The police get that out there. You know, they get that out there that she ran from them. And, you know, what happened to innocent until proven guilty? But she's been proven guilty and she'll have to prove her innocence once we find her.
Yeah.
So the people want to help. The best thing is publicity. Like you said, traditional media has not been very good to us. Folks like y'all have been great to us. We've done multiple podcasts and YouTube channels, and we appreciate every one of those. And for everybody that will just go to the updates for Kay-Alana Turner page. I don't know if you guys could link that or something, but just go to that page. Every post we make, we always put the link tree on there, which takes you to a page. It gives you all the information and ways, you know, if you wanted to help in any way, but mostly it is about, at this point, publicity, because unfortunately, one of the things we've learned about missing people is it's white noise. There's a lot of missing people. And, you know, to some degree, I can understand it. You know, hey, the news, you know, hey, missing people doesn't sell. You know, there's just too many of them. They would have a 30-minute show every night on just missing people if they, you know, covered all of them, and still wouldn't get them all.
And there was one that reminds me of your story a little bit, where but where they stopped searching. There's one lady that went missing from a flea market here. She had dementia, walked away. They stopped searching probably a football field away where they found her body 10 years later.
Wow.
Somebody got hurt on the property, and the property owner didn't want nobody else on the property, and they found her finally 10 years after the case.
Yeah.
And that's where somebody like, you know, like EquiSearch comes in, is they're diligent, you know, with getting permission from property owners, and they have some stroke, you know, just their name recognition. You know, if they show up on some property and say, you know, we want to search, they can get that done. Whereas, you know, if I show up at your property and say, I want to search, you know, who are you? So that's why we're so glad to have Texas EquiSearch back. And they've, on their page, if you go to their page, their Facebook page, they've got videos, and they did a video of me making a plea for people to search their own property. And in that video, they listed quite a few zip codes and the areas that were most anxious to get searched. And so that's another thing, you know, if you're able to link to Texas EquiSearch, and, you know, if anybody wants to make a donation to anybody,
please donate. Please donate to Texas EquiSearch. We have a GoFundMe, but Texas EquiSearch is putting up billboards for us. They're out there, boots on the ground for us. We're telling people Texas EquiSearch. As y'all were scrolling just now, a little farther up, there was a picture of Allie Lowitzer. She's been missing for 13 years. Her parents have been right there. That's Allie Lowitzer. Her family has been searching for her for 13 years. her mama has worked so hard in the state of Texas. And I'm going to tell you, she has been a light to help us as things have been going on. She's answered questions for us. She's worked on legislation in the state of Texas for missing people. Remember Allie's name, remember her face. If you go to her family's page, you can see they've got an age-generated picture of what she should look like now. They've been searching for her for 13 years. And that kind of goes along with what we say. I tell people that I have a Kay-Alana-sized hole in my heart, and that nothing will fill that hole except finding Kay-Alana. And I will search for her until I find her, or I will search for her till the day I die, because there's nothing that can replace her. Nothing. There's nothing. We have grandchildren. We have things that we love dearly. Our daughter Lauren, we love her dearly. We grieve for her not having her sister. They're so close, you know. We grieve for Ada and Ryder and them not having their aunt right now. You know, we have a Kay-Alana size hole in our heart that we need to be filled. We need to find her.
Yeah, we definitely do, guys. If you guys can do y'all's part and keep an eye out, share, and get her story out to as many people as possible. If you have any information or have seen Kay-Alana, please contact the phone number here on the screen. That's 281-309-9500. And again, I pinned it in the live chat. This page here is called Updates for Kay-Alana Turner. Go follow them, get updated get updates on this case, and let's get this to the attention that it needs to have, because you know she's not been given a fair opportunity to be found, and you know let's give her that opportunity and let's go find her.
So the new thing with that Harris County just came out with yesterday in their third letter, they said that finding Miss Turner is their priority, to bring her home.
Her safe return.
Her safe return. That's their priority. I'm going to hold them to that she is a priority now when she hasn't been.
Yeah. And if, you know, we'll continue to put out, you know, information as it comes at, and continue to put out the attention that this case deserves throughout, you know, the next however long it takes until she's found. Yeah, I want to thank you guys for coming on and sharing your story and your daughter's story, as heartbreaking as it must be for you guys, and as difficult as it must be to talk about this. You know, we commend your courage for coming on here and doing so. Do you have any questions for us or anything, any kind of statements you want to give out to everybody?
We're grateful. We thank you guys for having us on. We appreciate you, and others like you that have had us on as well. We want to assure people that we're hopeful. We're hopeful that we will have our daughter back again. We know that it's been 307 days. She hasn't been seen. All the evidence points to a bad outcome, but we have faith and hope that we will see her again, and we will have her home safely, and she'll be okay. And our faith is in God. We appreciate everyone's prayers. We believe in a God that answers prayer. It may not always be the answer we're looking for, and it may be that we don't get her home safely, but we will see her again. We have that confidence. And so thank you for your prayers, and thank you for all your help.
Thank you.
I just want to say one thing. I want to apologize. The last time we talked about this case, they asked me why the lips could be blue, and with drugs could affect that. And I didn't mean to lean towards the way of her using drugs if that came out the wrong way. I know some people. I did correct myself that day. I apologize about that, but you know, those are some of the factors. I didn't know she had a heart condition. I didn't know she had asthma, and all those factors can, you know, lead to the blue lips.
Yeah.
It's okay. Thank you for that.
Thank y'all. We really appreciate it. This is our only way of telling is for people like y'all to let us come on and talk about her. You know, we appreciate that. And we know this has changed me. I will never look at somebody and say, oh, this must be what happened. You know, I my whole life, I just blindly trusted the police. When I would hear something, I was like, well, you know, that the police, you know, and now I know that's not true. That's not true. And, but no, Kaylana has a heart condition. Her heart is actually about twice the size. She had congestive heart failure, which caused her heart to enlarge. So she has an enlarged heart that she's
Cardiomegaly. Cardiomegaly.
So,
well, again, we want to thank you guys, and you know, we commend your courage, and our prayers will go out for a safe return as well. You know, we're gonna be calling this one a show, but again, I want to thank y'all and appreciate you guys. And if you have any other updates that come out or any type of sightings or anything, feel free to share it with us, and we'll put it out there as soon as possible to try to get the word out.
thank you.
Thank y'all.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, guys. Y'all have a good one, everybody. For those, we do have a second show coming on. We'll be jumping on probably in about 5 to 10 minutes if you guys want to check that out. But with that said, we're going to bounce out of this one. Y'all have a good night. Peace.